Welcome back to Dragalia Lost Let's Design. This time I'd like to introduce you to Viran, the amnesiatic assassin, a 5-star light dagger attack unit. While fighting fiends in the woods outside the Halidom one day, the prince comes across a man wandering about, and after speaking with him, learns that the man has lost his memory. But based on his clothing, the man surmises that he might have been an assassin. After bringing him back to the Halidom and recruiting him to help protect the kingdom, the man bumps into Vice, who recognizes him as Viran, an assassin known for getting close to his targets for an extremely swift and unexpected kill. After warning him, the prince decides to give Viran the benefit of the doubt and trust him, and over the next week, Vice notices that while Viran's skills with a knife are still razor sharp, his mannerisms are not what he'd expect, and in the end, Viran faces off against his most recent employer who hired him to kill the prince, and ultimately decides that he wants to help the prince defend the kingdom. Viran still hasn't regained his memory, nor does anyone know how he came to lose it in the first place, and he's not sure he wants it back, as the amnesia provides him a type of clean slate from what his past could contain. But the end of his adventurer story leaves it unclear as to whether he actually has amnesia, or if everything is just an elaborate ruse to finish off the prince from within. Viran's first skill is Trust Breaker, where Viran will move to the target and strike, hitting for 5 hits of 170% light damage. Trust Breaker will have an SP cost of 2,864 SP. Viran's second skill is Friendly Approach, which raises Viran's critical rate by 30% for 15 seconds. Friendly Approach will have an SP cost of 5,782 SP. Viran's co-ability is the Standard Dagger critical rate of 10%, and Viran's chain co-ability is Energy equals Inspiration. Now, I know that doesn't sound very impressive at first, but Viran's first ability, Assassin's Touch, is the crux of his kit. Assassin's Touch grants Viran plus 400% critical damage. You heard correctly, 400%. Viran's resistance is Poison Res plus 100%. And finally, Viran's third ability is Dauntless Devastation, which raises his critical rate by 15% every 15 seconds that pass without being knocked back by an enemy. This buff can stack up to 3 times. All stacks will be lost if Viran is knocked back by an enemy. Viran was a fun unit to design. The crux of his kit is his first ability and its 400% extra crit damage. This does add to the base critical damage modifier of 70%, meaning that every critical hit deals an extra 470% damage. This is why the modifiers on his first skill are so low. If no hit crits, the first skill will only hit for 850%, which is weak in the current meta where about 1700 to 2000 is pretty good. However, if all 5 hits crit, then it hits for a whopping 4,845% damage. Additionally, this will affect all his standard attacks too, making all crits hit incredibly hard. The rest of Viran's kit is about making sure that more of those hits are crit than not. The base critical rate of 2% plus his co-ability grant him an innate critical rate of 12%. His second skill can temporarily raise it by another 30%, but if Viran is able to evade knockback, then after 45 seconds he'll have another 45%. With all buffs active, that brings him to a grand total of 87% critical rate, just over 4/5. So if Viran crits on 4 hits of his skill 1, he'll hit for about 4,046% damage, and this is only using the critical rate and damage that he has access to in his own kit. Now, there is another mechanic in the game that supersedes critical rate, and that is Inspiration. After gaining 5 levels of Inspiration, the next damaging skill used is guaranteed to fully crit. This is the first reason Viran has the Energy equals Inspiration chain co-ability, the second of which is that as a dagger it would pair well with Lucretia as a backliner. The Energy also allows Viran to bolster his damage considerably, and pairs well with a dragon like Thor. On the flip side, while Viran benefits from critical rate, the extra critical damage sees diminishing returns since his base modifier is already so high. For instance, if a crit damage dragon raises an adventurer's crit damage from 1.7 times to 2.25 times, that's a 40% increase to the modifier size. But applying an extra 0.55 times to 5.7 times would only increase the modifier size by 10%. Hence, in this case, critical rate is more important than critical damage. Viran's introduction and backstory were designed around the crit damage, and his skills were named to match. As an assassin, he has Poison Res, and for the third ability, I thought Dauntless Devastation was a cool idea. For as of the time I'm recording this, Kirsty is the only other instance of a Dauntless ability. It also matches his character, as a social fallout would set back his assassin killing style. I did consider Flurry Devastation instead, but the final choice rewards more careful play than a simple hit count. That's it for this episode of Dragalia Lost Let's Design. Let me know what you think of Viran, and I'll see you next time.